So now we are going to be working through my book called Proving the Story of Noah's Ark. And we have already done day one about the ark, about how it was made and how we can prove that it was built perfectly, about the flood and the things we learned about the flood and why the flood had to be a worldwide flood. Then we talked about the animals. Were there dinosaurs? How many animals were on the ark? How did they come to the ark? How old the animals were? So now we're going to talk about life on the ark. And even though Moses doesn't tell us much, Noah doesn't tell us much, we still have some ideas about life on the ark. So let me go back to this. Life on the ark. So we have a huge scripture that has to do with this. How long were they on the ark? Genesis 7:10. And it came to pass after 7 days, after they entered the ark, that the waters of the flood were on the earth. The 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month. On that day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. And the ark rested in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, on the mountains of Ararat. Then the water decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the windows of ark which he had made. Then he sent out a raven which kept going to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. He also set from himself a dove to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot, and she returned in the ark to him, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and drew her into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. Then the dove came to him in the evening, and behold, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in her mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. So he waited yet another 7 days and put out the dove, which did not return to him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, in the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked. And indeed the surface of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dried. And then God spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife, your sons and your sons' wives with you. So how long were they on the ark before it started to rain? We know that is 7 days. State the month and day of Genesis 7:11 in terms we can understand. So February 17th, February 17th in the 600th year. Name the month and day of Genesis 18:4 in the terms we understand. 8:14, sorry. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dried. So we have the 2nd month on the 17th and the 2nd month on the 27th. What is the difference in days between question 2 and question 4? Well, it seems like a year, so 365 days, and 10 days, right? Between 17 and 27. So a year and 10 days. So is there room enough for all the animals on the ark? We have already learned that the ark is 300 by 50 by 30 cubits, which is about 140 by 23 by 13.5 meters, or 459 by 75 by 44 feet. So its volume was 43,500 cubic meters, or 1.54 million cubic feet. But is this large enough to house 16,000 animals on the ark? And the answer is yes. To put this area of space on the ark in perspective, it's roughly equal to the capacity of 569 modern railroad stock cars, or more floor space than 20 standard basketball courts. Since the average size of the animal would be roughly equal to a sheep, and we know that 240 sheep can be carried in one stock car, 240 sheep times 569 stock cars equals 136,560 sheep. Therefore, we can easily see there would be plenty of room for 16,000 animals and also have space to move around. What animal would equal the average size of the animals on the ark? A sheep. That was the average size. There were animals smaller, there were animals bigger, but the average size was a sheep. What is the space on the ark equal to? Space on the ark is equal to the capacity of 569 modern railroad stock cars. So what did the animals eat on the ark? If they truly were on the ark, what would they eat? Now, we know some of them are carnivores, so what exactly happened here? We have two scriptures that deal with food on the ark. Genesis 6:21, and you shall take for yourself of all the food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. Genesis 7:2, you shall make with you 7 each of every clean animal. We also know, based on the comparison of Genesis 5:32 and Genesis 7:6, that Noah and his family took up to 100 years to build the ark and prepare for travel. What is the maximum time Noah and his family would have had to gather the various grown foods for the trip? 100 years. Would the grain continue to have been edible for a year? Consider what God had told Joseph in Genesis 41:35. Then have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses, store it away, and guard it so there would be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. So apparently if food had been gathered and held for 7 years of famine, then the food that was gathered and held on the ark should still be good. Would there have been fruit and possibly of dried fruit on the ark? Consider the following scripture. Genesis 1:11. Then God said, let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant and trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. These seeds would then produce the kind of plants and trees from which they came. So obviously there was fruit and dried fruit on the ark. How about meat-eating animals? How does Genesis 7:2 help us with this problem? Genesis 7:2. Well, the clean animals might also be eaten by the carnivorous animals, possibly. Although there's also another possibility on that too. They may have been, God may have made them vegetarians during the time of the ark. What happened to all the animal waste? Now, that's a really good question to me. A year in an enclosed space with 6,000 animals would have produced a huge amount of animal waste. What would you do with it all? How about the methane gas that comes from animal waste? As far as a collection of waste, one possibility would be to allow the waste to accumulate below the animals, much as we see in rustic hen houses. In this regard, there could have been slatted floors, and the animals could have trampled their waste into the pits below. Would Noah and his family have had the prior experience with tending animals? Absolutely. They were 200, 300 years old age. They would know how to tend animals. The danger of toxic or explosive manure gases, such as methane, would be alleviated by the constant movement of the ark, which would have allowed mature manure gases to be constantly released. Second, methane, which is half the density of air, would quickly find its way out of the window in the top of the ark. There's no reason to believe that the levels of these gases within the ark would have been remotely approached hazardous levels. However, it still would be quite smelly. What would be the worst problem caused by the accumulation of animal waste? How bad it smells. Where would the methane gas have gone to keep the air of the ark breathable? It would have traveled up because it's lighter than air and come through the window. After a year on the ark, would the air on the ark smell fresh or foul? Well, definitely foul. How could the animals stay calm on the ark? This is another great question. Many of the animals riding on the ark would not have been used to living indoors, riding inside a rocking ship, and living in close and dark quarters with other animals. So how was chaos prevented inside the ark? Although we have no scriptural answer other than all the kinds of animals survived the trip, therefore they didn't kill each other, a good logical answer would be the instinct of hibernation. Using our understanding of bears hibernating during the winter months, we can understand the following about hibernation. Animals require less food during hibernation. They have eaten more prior to hibernation than during their sleep. Their body survives on the excess fat. During hibernation, animals have a lower body temperature, slower breathing, and slower heart rate. They are calmer and less stressed. Hibernation conserves conserves energy during a time when sufficient food is not available. Hibernation would also made it easier for 8 people to have taken care of 16,000 animals. So what is the best answer on how the animals stayed calm during the trip on the Ark? Hibernation. Animals require more or less food during hibernation, less food during hibernation, so the food could have been extended that way. Animals are more or less stressed during hibernation. They're less stressed, just like when we sleep, we have less stress. Hibernation conserves or wastes energy. Hibernation conserves energy. Okay, so here's an idea of how the thought was as far as how the waste would have been gathered and rolled into the bottom of the pit. And here, of course, some jokes. I love my jokes on Noah's Ark. You throw the cats overboard, and I'll tell you where I found this branch. Hmm. And here's another one. Here he comes. Give me half a dozen. No animal pranks on the Ark. I thought the limit was 2 on rabbits. Yeah. Day 39 on the Ark. Okay, cool. All right. That's it for this chapter.